1963, Chevrolet unleashed an engine so powerful, its own parent company, General Motors, ordered it destroyed. This was the 427 Mystery Motor, a triumph of engineering genius shrouded by corporate decree. Born in secret defiance of GM's public withdrawal from motorsports, it was an act of audacious rebellion. This 7-liter monster, capable of blowing past rivals by 15 mph, mercilessly dominated the trials at Daytona, shattering records along the way. But instead of glory, it was met with a bacchanal of destruction. Every prototype was smashed with sledgehammers and melted down. What was the real reason for this ruthless extermination? Was it fear of regulatory power, or a cold, strategic calculation designed to conceal a staggering technological advantage? And how did the legend of the forbidden engine not only survive, but spark an entire era of American muscle? The year was 1957, a world where the roar of an engine had suddenly become too loud, too dangerous. It was the year the symphony of speed was supposed to fall silent for America's auto giants. General Motors, a titan of the industry, publicly bowed to pressure, signing the Automobile Manufacturers Association agreement. It was a solemn vow to withdraw from factory-backed racing programs. On the surface, the golden age of corporate motorsports was over. But beneath the gleaming facade of corporate compliance, a rebellious heart still beat, because before the ink was even dry on that historic document, the seeds of defiance were already being sown. GM, true to its nature, couldn't just walk away from racing. They found loopholes and made deals in whispers. Dealerships became conduits, and independent contractors became cover. And at the heart of this covert operation, one unyielding engineer, a visionary with an unshakable passion for speed, was about to ignite a revolution. His name was Zora Arkus-Duntov, the brilliant, defiant chief engineer of the Corvette. For Duntov, racing wasn't a hobby. It was an obsession, a fundamental truth. Corporate directives? They were merely suggestions to be bent or, if necessary, broken in the relentless pursuit of horsepower. He was the maestro conducting a forbidden symphony, pushing boundaries where others saw only walls. And so, under a strict cloak of secrecy, in the quiet halls of Chevrolet's engineering division, a legend began to stir. It was late 1962. The project had no official name, no public record. There was only a whisper, the Mystery Motor, or, to those in the know, the Mark II. It was a daring gamble, a challenge to the corporate ban forged in the fires of engineering genius. This was no ordinary V8. It was a 427 cubic inch Leviathan, a 7-liter beast built for a single purpose, to utterly dominate NASCAR. But its true genius lay not just in its colossal displacement. It was hidden in its revolutionary cylinder heads. The engineers, spurred by Duntov's audacity, had developed something unprecedented: canted valves. Angled and aggressive, these valves allowed for significantly larger intake and exhaust ports, unleashing an unparalleled flow of air and fuel. The design was so radical, so pregnant with performance potential, that it earned the iconic nickname Porcupine Heads. Imagine the raw, untamed power that could be channeled through such a bold design. This was more than metal and oil. It was a declaration of war on the status quo, a promise of speed so profound it couldn't stay secret for long. The stage was set. The beast was about to be unleashed. The beast was unleashed. But for this 427 cubic inch Leviathan to truly roar, it needed a stage. And that stage, of course, was the legendary oval of Daytona. Under the cover of night, smuggled like priceless contraband, a handful of prototype mystery motors left the quiet engineering halls of Chevrolet. Their journey was clandestine and shrouded in secrecy, These engines weren't sent to dealers or official test tracks, which would have raised red flags. Their destination was carefully chosen: the garages of the most trusted and battle-hardened race teams: Junior Johnson and Ray Fox, Rex White, Johnny Rutherford. These were names whispered with reverence, a guarantee that this unprecedented engine would be in the hands of men who could wring every last drop of power from it. The goal was singular: unconditional dominance at the 1963 Daytona 500. But even at the track, the engine remained a phantom, its true nature concealed. To deceive the sharp-eyed NASCAR inspectors, who could often identify an engine's displacement by the block's external features alone, these monsters were meticulously disguised. Their castings and housings were stamped with false, misleading markings: 409 or even 396. Imagine the scene. Beneath this unassuming facade lurked a true predator, each of its pistons a threat to the entire field. It was a high-stakes gamble bordering on illegal, where every number on the block risked exposing years of secret work and igniting a massive scandal. February 1963. Daytona. The air thrummed with anticipation, gasoline, and rubber. But amid the familiar roar of engines and the chaos of the pits, something was different. As soon as the pre-race practice sessions began, the Chevrolets equipped with this forbidden heart began to do the unimaginable. Their speed was frightening. The legendary Junior Johnson, a man whose racing instincts were akin to magic, was the first to feel its raw, almost feral power. His mystery motor Impala didn't just go fast. It flew. "We were just blowing by everybody in practice at Daytona," Johnson would recall years later, the awe still evident in his voice. "It was the most powerful engine I'd ever seen. We could pass anybody, anytime we wanted to." It was no exaggeration. On a track where every extra mile per hour is an eternity, the cars with this hidden power plant were effortlessly gapping their competitors by 10 to 15 mph. This wasn't just an advantage, it was a deafening slap in the face to the entire field. Johnson, without even realizing it, was setting new lap records, pushing the ragged edge of what was thought possible. Whispers of envy, bewilderment, and even fear spread down pit lane. What was this devilry? Where did this savage power come from? Chevrolet, it seemed, had broken its chains, flouting every ban. It wasn't just competing, it was threatening total annihilation. The beast was awake, and now everyone waited for it to bare its fangs in the most important race of the year. The whispers of fear that had rippled down pit lane during practice quickly became a deafening roar. What began as suspicion became a shocking reality during qualifying. The Chevrolets, powered by this engineering masterpiece, weren't just leading, they were humiliating their rivals. Junior Johnson, at the wheel of his Impala, didn't just drive fast, he shattered the track record, sending competitors scrambling to rethink their entire strategy. It was an unthinkable advantage, and the air at Daytona grew thick with tension. But what was the source of this raw, untamed power? The secret, so carefully guarded within Chevrolet, was buried deep inside the engine. Under the fierce guidance of Zora Arkus-Duntov, the team had developed something revolutionary. The Mark II mystery motor boasted unique cylinder heads. Its canted valves, nicknamed porcupine heads by the engineers for their spiky appearance, allowed the engine to breathe in a way no other of its era could. It was like giving lungs to a leviathan, fueling its mind-bending speed. This design explained not only the 10-15 mph advantage, but also why Johnson was so brutally fast, leaving nothing but smoke and despair in his wake. February 24th, 1963, arrived, the day the world would witness the mystery motor in all its glory. the Daytona 500. The green flag dropped and the cars surged forward. But it soon became clear this would be a solo performance. Junior Johnson, his Impala powered by a forbidden heart, was in a class of his own. He didn't just fight for the lead, he seized it and refused to let go. Lap after lap, Johnson dominated, pulling further and further away from the field like a comet on a fixed trajectory. 56 laps. 56 perfect, merciless laps of absolute superiority. The crowd held its breath, watching as the new king of Daytona relentlessly built his lead. Triumph seemed inevitable. Chevrolet was poised to throw off the shackles of corporate prohibition and declare itself the unbeatable force in racing. But fate had other plans. The rushed development, the lack of time for exhaustive testing, sacrifices made for the sake of secrecy and speed, began to take their toll. On the 57th lap, with victory almost tangible, an alarming sound cut through the air, a metallic clatter, a shudder, an instantaneous loss of power. The engine that had just been singing a song of victory began to choke. Johnson's car slowed dramatically, coasting to the side of the track before coming to a dead stop. The cause was quickly found: a broken rocker arm, a small but critical piece of the valve train. A single failed component had shattered the dream. The mystery motor, the brilliant comet that had shone so brightly just moments before, had suddenly extinguished itself, leaving behind only a trail of disappointment and questions. The most powerful engine the racing world had ever seen was stopped not by a rival, but by its own fragility. It was more than a defeat on the track. It was a harbinger of the storm to come, one that would seek to erase the mystery motor from existence. The order from on high was swift, cold, and ruthless. Destroy it. Completely. Without a trace, every single prototype of the mystery motor was to be eradicated. For the engineers who had poured their souls into its creation, the command was a personal desecration. They watched as their masterpieces, returned from the track, were subjected to a grim bacchanal of destruction. Men with sledgehammers surrounded the engines that had so recently screamed at peak power. The engines were intentionally smashed into mangled heaps of iron and then sent to be melted down. A final, irreversible execution. Why such a brutal response? GM's public commitment to the 1957 racing ban was being flagrantly violated on the biggest stage in America. The mystery motor wasn't just breaking the rule. It was doing so with a loud, ostentatious superiority that drew everyone's attention. But whispers suggested a more sinister motive. At the time, the U.S. government was scrutinizing large corporations for potential antitrust violations. GM's overwhelming dominance on the track, even for just 56 laps, could attract unwanted attention from Washington. Perhaps the destruction was a preemptive strike, a desperate act to hide the evidence of an engineering supremacy so vast it could be mistaken for an unfair, monopolistic advantage. But like all true legends, the mystery motor refused to die. Despite the order, the engine's spirit and its technology endured. The revolutionary design of the porcupine heads was too brilliant to abandon. It became the genetic blueprint for the legendary Mark IV big block engines, which Chevrolet unveiled to the public in 1965. Known as the Rat motors, these power plants and their high-performance variants, like the L88 and ZL1, carried the DNA of their forbidden ancestor. They became the heart of the most iconic muscle cars and race cars of the era, from the ZL1 Camaro to the L88 Corvette, ensuring the legacy of the mystery motor would thunder on for decades. And yet, one physical artifact survived the purge. The legendary racing guru and master of circumvention, Smokey Yunick, somehow managed to acquire one of the engines from Chevrolet, preserving it for posterity. Today, That single, authenticated survivor rests in the Don Garlits Museum of Drag Racing in Florida, a silent testament to a power too great to be contained and a story too compelling to be erased. The order to destroy should have erased every molecule of the mystery motor from history. The metal that champions were made of was turned to nameless scrap, buried under the dust of corporate fear. But death is not always the end. Sometimes it only gives birth to new legends, new whispers that carry on the wind, refusing to be silenced. Yes, most of these formidable engines vanished into oblivion, crushed and melted down. But persistent rumors quickly began to circulate that not all of them met this fate. Stories of engines secretly saved by engineers who couldn't bring themselves to destroy their creations, of motors hidden in the dark corners of garages, far from the unforgiving eyes of GM. These urban legends fueled the myth of the forbidden engine, adding an aura of martyrdom and defiance. For as they say, what is suppressed only grows stronger in collective memory, and, as is often the case, there is a kernel of truth in every legend. Amid the widespread loss and myth, one mystery motor did indeed escape its inevitable end. Its savior was none other than the legendary racing guru, a master of cunning and engineering audacity, Smokey Yunick. This man, whose name itself was synonymous with unconventional solutions and bending the rules, somehow managed to acquire one such engine directly from Chevrolet. One can only imagine the delicate negotiations, the labyrinth of back channels Smokey navigated to snatch this coveted artifact from the hands of corporate executioners. For Yunick, this engine was more than a relic. It became a new canvas for his engineering experiments. He studied it, modified it, likely tore it down and rebuilt it, unlocking the secrets of its unprecedented power. This was an engine too perfect for its time, and Smokey Yunick, like a keeper of ancient knowledge, protected it and continued its story. Later, to cement its place in the annals of motorsport, Yunick donated this single confirmed survivor to the Don Garlits Museum of Drag Racing in Florida. There it stands to this day, a tangible testament that even the most determined corporate attempts to erase the past do not always succeed. It is not just a piece of metal. It is a monument to ingenuity that survived against all odds. But even without the physical presence of most prototypes, the spirit of the mystery motor deeply penetrated Chevrolet's genetic code. Its technologies, born in secret workshops and proven at the speeds of Daytona, could not simply disappear. They were too valuable. The key element that survived the destruction and flourished anew was the revolutionary cylinder head design with its characteristic valve arrangement. It was these canted or angled valves which gave the engine its porcupine head nickname that provided the incredible airflow and consequently the unprecedented power. These ideas did not gather dust for long. In 1965, just 2 years after the Daytona incident, Chevrolet introduced its new line of Mark IV big block engines to the public. The world knew them by the nickname Rat Motors, but inside these power plants beat the heart of their forbidden ancestor. The mystery motors technologies were adapted for mass production, refined, and legalized for racing use. It was the Mark IV that became the foundation for legendary variants like the L88 and ZL1, which found their way under the hoods of the iconic ZL1 Camaro and L88 Corvette, cars that became the pinnacle of the American muscle car movement and dominated the tracks for decades to come. Thus, from the ashes, like a phoenix, a new era of power arose, forever changing the face of American racing. And so the question arises, what if the destruction of the mystery motor was not just an act of panic, driven by the violation of the racing moratorium and fear of antitrust investigations, but a brilliant, albeit cruel, strategic move. What if it was a way to hide their technological advantage from competitors? Imagine, you've created an engine that is head and shoulders above everyone else. If you release it to the market immediately, your rivals will begin to analyze, copy, and catch up. But if you remove it from sight, feign its complete destruction, and then, a couple of years later, release its refined and perfected version, the Mark IV, you gain a head start of several years. During that time, your competitors will only be guessing what happened at Daytona in '63, while you calmly dominate with a new, now legal, but equally lethal weapon. This theory adds a new layer of cynical genius to the story of the mystery motor. Was it merely an act of fear, or a cold calculation disguised as corporate hysteria? In any case, the story of the mystery motor is not just the story of an engine. It is a saga of secret power, of survival against all odds, and of how even the most desperate attempts to erase something from memory only amplify its legend, turning it into an immortal whisper from the past that continues to echo in the roar of modern engines. But even after the order for destruction, death was not the end. It became a rebirth. For some legends simply refused to die. While most of these titans of engineering were erased from the earth, their genetic code was carefully preserved. The secrets of its unprecedented power, the revolutionary cylinder heads with canted valves, all of it proved too valuable to disappear forever. Just a couple of years, and the world saw the Mark IV big block, that very rat motor, through whose veins flowed the blood of its forbidden ancestor. It became the foundation for the L88 and ZL1, engines that roared under the hoods of iconic L88 Corvettes and ZL1 Camaros, transforming these machines into icons of speed and pure, unbridled force. The legacy of the forbidden engine lived on, dominating tracks and the hearts of fans, proving that true innovation cannot be stopped. And yet, amidst this triumphant resurrection, there is something more tangible: the sole, undeniable proof of its physical existence. In the Don Garlits Museum of Drag Racing, amidst the Florida swamps, encased in glass, rests that very miraculously preserved mystery motor. It's not just an exhibit, it's a living ghost of the past, a witness to a daring experiment, having survived against corporate wrath. Every curve of its unique design, every line of the porcupine head, whispers a story of genius ahead of its time, and of a forbidden power that could have changed the course of racing history. But the story of this engine did not freeze in a museum display case. It continues to pulse, fed by new rumors. Periodically, like ghosts from the past, unconfirmed whispers emerge of almost complete mystery motor finds in dusty corners of old garages or in secret private collections. These stories, often unsubstantiated, only weave deeper into the fabric of the myth. Every such tale, every glimmer of hope for a new discovery, only amplifies the aura of mystery, making the legend even more vivid and invulnerable. Because the Chevrolet 427 mystery motor is not just a collection of iron and gears. It is a symbol of defiance. It is a fable that true power, true innovation, cannot be erased by an order from above. It will find a way to live, to inspire, to become an immortal legend whose roar continues to resonate in the hearts of everyone who loves speed and believes in the power of ingenuity. The Mystery Motor, a story not just about iron and speed. It's a deep reflection on the indomitable power of the human spirit, on a passion capable of ignoring all prohibitions, and on the inevitable price for boundless superiority. Its physical demise became merely a catalyst for the birth of an immortal legend, proof that true innovation cannot be erased, only transformed. Can power truly destroy a dream, or does it merely temper it, turning it into an immortal whisper of history? And what is the true price for challenging the status quo? Oblivion or triumphant rebirth? What really happened at Daytona in '63? Was it a collapse or a cold calculation? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story made you think, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel to explore new mysteries of the past with us.